Welcome to the Housing Digital Micro Conference on revolutionising tenant repayment agreements in social housing, sponsored by Voicescape. In this micro conference, we will explore the complex issue of managing tenant repayment agreements. Social landlords across the sector are sharing the challenges they face with informal, high-risk repayment agreements, leading to significant unrecovered debt. A range of industry experts will share best practice on how to reduce break rates, minimize arrears, and improve financial outcomes for both housing providers and their tenants. We move on to our third and final keynote of today's micro conference. We're pleased to welcome Shirley McFarlane, who's the Income Management Team Leader at Onward Homes.
Hi, everyone. I've actually been in social housing for about 16 years now, and I came as a temp and I thought I'd get a little 2-week job out of it, and look at me, I'm still here. But one of the things that resonates with me, the reason for mentioning this is I once went to court with one of the rent officers early in my admin journey, as it was. And I was absolutely mind blown by a court mandate at 375 a week on a 4 grand debt. And I remember sitting there thinking, my goodness, that's going to take 20 and a half years to clear. And I often wonder where that customer is, if they're still an Onward customer, and where they are in their journey at the moment. And if you could just come on to the next slide, please, Steve. Just a little bit about Onward, really. We've got probably, it says over 35,000, it's more like 37,000 now. We became Onward Homes in 2018. And I think one of the things that we live by within the business is the Onward difference, whereby our vision is for us to enable our customers to be their best by providing homes that people love in places they're proud of. And linked to that is a real focus on customer care. And dare I say, one of the words that we use at Onward is delighting our customers. Our customer accounts team manage all of Onward's income, and we support customers with their finances. And we also have an in-house money advice team. Now, about 18 months ago, we had a restructure, and we created a team that could adapt to challenging economic climate and basically do more for our customers. Our specialists run across 2 tiers. First of all, we have 19 early intervention officers, and their job is to really work with customers at the start of any arrears journey to really nip that in the bud. Then we have our customer account specialist who take over cases where a notice of seeking possession's been served. 3 weeks into that, there's no arrangement. They are going to negotiate, speak to that customer, because we want our customers to sustain their tenancy. We want to avoid court, as everyone on this call will agree. There's a lot less court action now since post-pandemic. And we're all about tenancy sustainability. We want to let well, sustain well, and end a tenancy well. And also, as well, it's fair to say, in an Amazon world, our customers really do expect more. Can we have the next slide, please? And nothing I'm going to say here will probably come as any surprise to anyone who's a rent officer or team leader or manager. It really is. If we look at agreements, or Onward was, we were using the term arrangements. Well, what we've done now is we've actually said to the team, let's use the term agreement. And it's very much our bread and butter, like you guys will find. And a lot of money, as an earlier slide has shown, is tied up in that debt. And oh, goodness me, my computer is saying it's about to restart. I do hope it doesn't. Hang on, just bear with me. Ooh. Ooh. Hopefully I can get to the end of my session. I do apologise. Right, so it is our bread and butter, and we manage agreements within our housing management system, and we currently use Orchard MRI. And we add these for both informal arrangements and also court mandated ones. Now, as you know, for managing arrangements in your housing management system, it can be like really, really difficult, particularly around reporting and visibility around that. We know that best practice, it would be great to do a full income and expenditure with customers, but rarely, our officers don't have the time and also our customers as well. And then we end up, due to like capacity, for want of a better, we end up with random figures for an agreement, or even DWP led figures are used. For example, this year, £4.65 a week. And I think as well that it's fair to say that there's a lazy assumption can be made about our customers' financial capability. And sometimes we might set an agreement that's too high, so it's going to fail, or even too low. And I think that in the past, we've set rates that customers may find unsustainable. Some customers might want to people please and go, oh, yeah, I'll give you £20 a week, when we know that really they're just not going to be able to afford that. And what we want to do is we want to support our customers out of debt. Let's be honest, our customers are likely to be saddled with other debts. So let's work with them to sort of bring their rent or charges debt forward and reduce it earlier than perhaps it would have done historically. Could I get the next slide, please? And you know what? Agreements are important to us, as to the all other social landlords, because there's about 30% of our overall debt tied up in agreements or court orders. I think you will agree that generally they sustain well in the early periods, but then start to fall off a few months down the line. And as I alluded to earlier, you can have some agreements that can take 30 odd years to clear. And again, it's a long time for that customer to be saddled with that debt. I think agreements are time consuming for the team to contact customers and re-administer. I can't tell you how many calls come into the contact centre per week. Hi, I'd like to make an arrangement, when they've perhaps had two, three, or four in the background. And we do know as well that seasonality, we know the seasonal pressures, and we know that customers struggle more at certain times of the year. We've just seen it now over Easter. We've seen it at Christmas time. And I think it's important to recognise that and work with our customers around those sort of pain point areas in terms of their finances. So I can have the next slide, please. This is just a slide that my head of service did, and it was just looking at current arrangements by expected end date. And it shows that some of the arrangements that have been made in the last 6 months won't complete before 2027, if they even make it that far. So next slide, please. And you know what? We've tried. We got an affordability passport with open banking attached to it. Our money advice team were using it. We tried to use it. Didn't, we weren't getting the buy-in from customers. Also, our customer service centre have been making an agreements with customers to make the process easier. And we've also tried to integrate all agreements into our analytics software called Click, but it's very, very hard to see the wood for the trees within there. As with other landlords, we deliver, regular phone coaching around negotiating with the team. We have a fees model with some agreements around our leasehold customers, for example. And I think, the assumptions on customer finances, sometimes as well, perhaps within the team, and I've probably been guilty of it as well. Oh, yeah, just pay a fiver, you'll be fine. But I think one of the things is that it's really important that we look and see. Imagine if you've got everyone who owes you a debt and on an agreement, if you've got an extra £1 a week off everyone, how much that would affect and bring in your income. Could we have the next slide, please? And we're really pleased to be working with VoiceScape as a development partner on Agreements Manager, really thinking differently about how we engage with customers. And I think one of the differences here is that I think that cannot be underestimated is the power of gratitude. I think when I think back to when I was a rent officer making an arrangement with a customer to clear a debt, did I say, oh, you know what, thanks very much for doing that today? And also, there was no information getting sent to customers. In the past, we had a letter that went out. But as we know, with letters these days, it's texts, it's emails that customers like. And I think that what's really great about this new opportunity here is we get to see what debt is tied up in agreements, and our target setting will become more accurate in terms of forecasting as well. And I think I mentioned earlier on about delighting our customers, and it's really important to us to create a better customer experience, to empower our teams, because it can be very dissatisfying if you've spent an hour on the phone with a customer 3 weeks ago making an arrangement and then it's broken. Could I have the next slide, please? Um, what we like about early days so far with it, we love the fact that it shows suggested repayments amounts. It's presented to our team for them to be able to discuss with the customers. It's very easy access to information. And I think one of the key points is telling customers how long an agreement will take to clear based on the repayment rate. I mentioned before about the power of gratitude, really thinking differently about how we look at things. And it sits along very, very neatly alongside caseload manager. And our team, we've got about 6 or 7 colleagues working on this at the moment. And one of the things that we're also doing on top of this is, I was on the ISNG call earlier on this week, and one landlord was saying that, obviously, customer will ring the contact centre and say, I want to make a new arrangement. But we're really also as well drilling down with that customer and seeing why their previous arrangement failed. We don't want them to fail. We need an agreement with them that's specific to them. They can achieve it and it's compatible to their income as well. And I think sometimes we forget that. And I mentioned earlier about that sort of lazy assumptions kind of viewpoint. If I could get the next slide, please. I just wanted to reflag this slide here because I think it's really, really important and it resonates with all of us who work in income collection, particularly the 3 to 6 months before an arrangement break, the typical break rate running at 90% plus, and that huge top left there, up to 50% of a landlord's total arrears are sort of set up in under informal agreements and repayment arrangements. So if we could just have the next slide, please. Excuse me. Next slide. Oop. And what I did was, as I say, we've got about half a dozen colleagues working at the moment. And do you know what? I was really pleased. They've been doing it for a few weeks now, quite a few weeks now. And the first one is from my colleague Hattie. Now, Hattie, very new to housing, came to us about a year ago. And she really likes the fact that when she's making an agreement with a customer, it tells her how long it will for the debt to be cleared, saves us working it out. And also, we can also share that information with the customer. My colleague Abby said it's a great way to see how well a customer's payment pattern compares to the agreement we've got in place. It's really useful to have information about adherence to previous arrangements, and it can help inform us on how to proceed with a case. Now, one of my other colleagues really impressed with Agreements Manager, easy to use, the information's clearly displayed. And I think as well, it'll have a real impact on maintaining successful agreements and maximising our collections. Now, that's just, early days. It's user friendly. I've used it myself. I really like how it resonates. And also, one of the great things about it is you can actually copy and paste quite a nice little part of it where you can actually send that on to the customer if you were to choose to email, for example. And we're about to go live with a text that will automatically go through to our customers. And if we could have the next slide, please. And any questions, but I've got to tell you guys that I don't know what's going on with my computer, but I've got 4 minutes before it literally closes itself down, which is a delight, but hey ho. Let me see if I can help anybody with any questions you might have.
That's
Yeah, I've got one. Mark Cantrell, editor of
Hi,
Housing
Mark.
Digital. Hi. Yeah, I was listening to what you were saying earlier about, how you've been managing agreements prior to trying out VoiceScape's package. And I was wondering, how you're finding the change for your wider teams who are working to help tenants who, are on low incomes. How is it maybe helping them with to help tenants with their finances before it even reaches this agreement rent arrears phase?
Right, so how we work with customers, you mean at the early
Yeah,
part of an arrears journey. So
yeah.
because we've got this cohort of early intervention specialists, what they do is they take the time to call customers, and that's one of the things I just wanted to say. I don't know whether anyone is of a similar age to me on the call, but if you recall years ago, British Telecom had an advert, "It's good to talk," and that's very much what we're about. So we will call the customer and talk to them, and it really makes a difference rather than just banging out a letter or sending a text, for example. And what we do is obviously it can be embarrassing if you're on a low income and you're really struggling. But what we do is we drill down and say, have you got any debts that you're worried about? Is there anything we can do to help? For example, in the north, a feature will be United Utilities water debt. Well, we know that we can link in with our money advice team. We know that United Utilities have got a trust fund. We access things such as the Vickers Relief Fund for some customers as well. And also, we look on a wider part of it because sometimes, if a customer has worked, for example, we had somebody who'd worked in farming for a number of years and they came along and cleared her debt of about 2 grand. So it's all that kind of thing. But yeah, in some instances, we're not able to really help. But what we do say to the customer is, let's get on top of this debt now. Let's support you. And where I think this is different is in the past, when you made an arrangement with a customer, you'd constantly be getting your housing management system saying broken arrangement, when it wasn't the case. But equally, if it had broken, you weren't getting that visibility.
Right, thanks for that. Yeah.
Brilliant. We have a raised hand from Mia Carter.
Hi, Mia.
Hello, lovely to meet you all. Great presentation. I'm not in social housing. I'm completely different. I'm void management, but it's always good to hear how things can assist partners. One of the things that I wanted to ask would, does it help you define actual debt versus withheld debt for other departments? So I'm sure you'll probably have experiences where you've got residents, tenants withholding something due to the fact that there's work that's potentially needed. Can it work that way? Can it assist in those sort of insights?
That's a good question, actually, and something I need to take away because obviously we're very much in tune with and understanding. Because obviously, one of the biggest things for any social landlord is I'm not paying my rent because you haven't done my repair. But we also reinforce that with you do need to pay your rent in the interim. We're sorry that you're dissatisfied with that. I'm just mindful, guys. I'm on 22 seconds. I'm absolutely mortified, but it's an it's my computer.
No worries. Thank you, Shirley.
All that's left is a brief summary of each of our keynotes. We first obviously heard from Steve, who is the sector lead at VoiceScape. Steve summarised the sector challenges associated with repayment agreements from extensive sector research. 90% of agreements fail, which is astounding. 90% of agreements fail within 3 to 6 months. Up to 50% of arrears are tied up in them. There seems to be a constant cycle of making, breaking, and chasing. And Steve introduced the solution to this, which is, of course, the agreements manager. We then heard from our independent behavioural insights advisor, Stephen Johnson. Stephen presented how agreements manager is behavioural science backed, looking at what factors impact agreement success, including social factors that are a big part of the problem. As per the quote, there is too much life happening out there for residents. Stephen went on to explain the golden moments of communication and to get this right, to keep agreements on track to maintain sustainable tenancies for the future. And then we finally heard briefly from Shirley McFarlane, who's the income management team leader at Onward Homes. Shirley presented Onward's historical battle with agreements and how it has always been a priority for them to solve. One case study is where a resident was paying £4.50 a week on a 4K debt, which would take decades to repay. Shirley then shared why Onward are going on a journey with Agreements Manager, some of the reasons why they like the system, but advised that the power of gratitude cannot be ignored ever. Thank you to everyone who attended today's micro conference. We are wrapping up slightly early today. Just a reminder to all attendees, if you haven't already registered on Housing Digital, please do so. It's free. It means you can access content like this, the recordings of all our previous micro conferences. You can interact on our secure social wall. You can advertise jobs free of charge on Housing Digital as a logged in member. I will share the link now. No, that's not the link. But if you head on to housingdigital.co.uk/register, like I say, it is free to register for an account there. Other than that, we hope to see you at a future micro conference. Please join me in saying a big thank you to our keynote speakers, and we hope to see you again soon.